My name is Alan Mackinnon. I attended the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference in the first week in May 2010 as a delegate from Scottish CND. This is my report of the conference. I hope you find it interesting. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is generally described as a deal between the 5 original nuclear weapon states, that's Britain, America, Russia, France and China, and the great majority of non-nuclear states. The deal is that the non-nuclear states agree not to seek nuclear weapons, in return for which the nuclear weapon states agree to get rid of theirs. Now, generally speaking, the non-nuclear states have kept their side of the bargain, while the nuclear weapon states have not. This is a part of a demonstration that took place the day before the conference opened. 15,000 people marched through the streets of New York to demand a world free from nuclear weapons. This section of the demonstration represents Mayors for Peace, which is the fastest growing peace organisation in the world, now representing over 4,000 towns and cities and over a half of the world's population. This is the section of the British delegation at the conference on the demonstration also. The big idea that has emerged over the past 10 years or so is the idea of a nuclear weapons convention. That's a negotiated, phased and balanced reduction in nuclear weapons, leading to a global ban on these weapons of mass destruction, leading to zero weapons on the part of any country. Opinion polls show there is widespread support for such a conference, for such a treaty across the world, including in the United States and Britain. And the support has come now from a number of establishment figures in Britain and America, and a number of organisations which have been set up, including ICANN, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, Mayors for Peace, Global Zero, and the proposals from the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, 5 steps to a nuclear-free world. Now, nuclear weapons, the idea of a nuclear weapons convention is, however, opposed by several countries, including Britain, America, France and Russia. The UK ambassador, John Duncan, described it as idealistic, unrealistic and premature. He argues that it's in conflict with the Non-Proliferation Treaty in some kind of bizarre logic, and he argues that he prefers a step-by-step approach, such as the new START treaty to reduce nuclear weapons between Russia and America. I think it's easy to counter these arguments because a nuclear weapons convention doesn't conflict with the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it complements the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Indeed, it provides the framework and the method for implementing the crucial Article 6 of that treaty, which deals with nuclear disarmament. It also provides a comprehensive framework which would draw in all nuclear weapon states, not simply the original 5 that I mentioned, but also Pakistan, India, North Korea and Israel, into a comprehensive process. We don't need to be dogmatic about what form it should take. It could follow the original Model Nuclear Weapons Convention form or Ban Ki-moon's 5 steps form. The important thing is that the countries sign up to it with a key objective at the end of it. And that's why a step-by-step approach, although welcome, is not in itself enough, because it's so easy for countries to get blown off course, to lose momentum, to lose sight of the ultimate objective. Unless they're part of a comprehensive framework with the clear objective is to get rid of nuclear weapons and negotiate them down to zero, then the likelihood is that these steps will come to naught and will fizzle out. So let's look now at the main decisions of the conference. The most important and positive one, I think, was support for the idea of a nuclear-free Middle East, or to put it more accurately, a Middle East free from weapons of mass destruction. Under this scheme, Israel would have to come clean about its own nuclear weapons. It would have to join the Non-Proliferation Treaty and accept the IAEA safeguards. That's the International Atomic Energy Authority. The UN Secretary General under this scheme has the responsibility for convening a conference in 2012 to negotiate such a treaty with all states invited. I think this is an important breakthrough because it deals not only with the problem of the question mark over Iran's nuclear program, which has been raised by a number of countries, but also with Israel, which is the only country in the region which actually has nuclear weapons. So a comprehensive way of dealing with one of the areas which is seen as a powder keg, really. There is a precedent for a nuclear-free zone idea. There are already nuclear-free zones in Africa, Latin America and Central Asia, also in the South Pacific, in Antarctica. So there is already a framework and an existing methodology for doing this. What are the implications? What about the central issue of nuclear disarmament? Because that's obviously something that concerns us here in Britain. There were also positive achievements here. The nuclear weapon states agreed to accelerate concrete progress towards nuclear disarmament. They agreed to downgrade the role of nuclear weapons in their military doctrines, and they agreed to report back progress on these items in 4 years. Where there wasn't progress, and where the conference didn't, or the nuclear weapon states refused to accept the idea of a nuclear weapons convention, unfortunately, but the idea was noted, particularly Ban Ki-moon's 5-step proposals were noted in the final conference document, and so that in itself, I think, does represent some progress in what's happened in the past. What are the implications for Britain and for campaigning here and across the world? Firstly, the idea that the Nuclear Weapons Convention is now on the agenda. It has widespread international support. It's now seen as necessary and achievable. And our job in Scotland and across the UK is to popularise the idea and to build support politically for it. Secondly, we need to ensure that the decisions that were taken, the positive decisions that were taken at the conference, are actually implemented. We need to apply pressure to Israel and the United States to make sure that a conference on the Middle East goes ahead and that Israel actually attends. Also, that Trident replacement is clearly inconsistent with the review conference final document, the decision that the government signed up to accelerate concrete progress towards nuclear disarmament. Well, replacing Trident would take us in exactly the opposite direction. It would bind us into possession of nuclear weapons for the next 50 years. It would show increasingly that Britain is out of step, not only with the Obama administration, but with the rest of the world. We need to ensure that the British government honours its new international obligations, the agreement that it's just signed. We also, I think, can exploit the ambiguity in the new coalition government's agreement, the idea that they would scrutinise Trident replacement to ensure value for money, and that the Liberal Democrats could continue to make the case for alternatives. And this is particularly important because any scrutiny of the costs of Trident will quickly reveal that the cost of Trident has doubled since the original estimates were made. And that in itself should prompt the Liberal Democrats to make the case for scrapping the scheme altogether. So I think there's a lot of scope for calling on the Liberal Democrats to challenge under the existing agreement. Trident, of course, if we spend kind of billions on Trident, this comes directly at the expense of spending on education, health and local authority services. And it does so at a time when we can expect cuts of up to 20% in these services. I think we need to develop work with teachers, with health workers, with public service unions, so that we can develop joint campaigning to highlight the waste of money on Trident and the fact that our public services are suffering directly as a result of that. So what can you do to help this situation? You can join Scottish CND. You can join our contacts list if you're not quite ready to join Scottish CND. You can visit our website at banthebomb.org or the British CND website at cnduk.org, so that we can keep in touch with you and you can keep in touch with us, and we can work jointly for a better and safer world. That's the end of my report. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.